Another huge day in federal politics with the leaders on either side of the country. The Prime Minister, of course, in WA with the Chinese Premier, and Peter Dutton on the south coast of New South Wales. Sky political reporter, editor Andrew Clennell has been all over this. He joins us now. Let's start with the Chinese visit. I mean, obviously, things went downhill yesterday. You had those big demos out the front of Parliament House, and then that disgraceful behaviour toward Cheng Lei. Has the Prime Minister managed to navigate through this for the general public to think that this visit's been worthwhile, do you think?
No, I don't think so. Unfortunately for him, that Cheng Lei thing, it marred the whole visit, really, didn't it? The behaviour of the Chinese officials. So this, he thought, would be a PR win, particularly good with the Chinese Australian community, who are key in a number of marginal seats, whether it be Bennelong or Aston or Reid or Tangney. And instead, it looks like what Don Farrell, the Trade Minister, denied on Sunday Agenda they were doing, that we're kowtowing to the Chinese. So he went for a mop-up today, the PM. He kind of said, look, it wasn't acceptable, that behaviour towards Cheng Lei, but once that occurred on our shores, in our parliament, it kind of summed up the problems with the relationship and that they haven't gone away. It's an extraordinary moment, I think. This is one of the most difficult issues to navigate, and the debate is always going to be, are we giving away too much to them to keep up this relationship with them? And that debate will go on. The Australian government clearly needs to keep condemning wrong behaviour. It just needs to do that. And once Premier Lei's gone, I think it'd be prudent of the PM to do that.
Yeah, he's got to manage it a hell of a lot better. Just on the wider federal discussion about climate, we're in the middle of another climate war, you would imagine, in the lead up to the election. I opened the program today talking a story about broke down here today, where the CFA is saying, well, we're not going to fight fires if they break out where you're putting these wind turbines and solar panels, because it's too dangerous for us to do so. They're local farmers where these things are being ploughed through the middle of their farms. And then you've got this wind turbine project. I don't know about you, Andrew, but I love the south coast of New South Wales. The size of that thing that they're talking about off the Illawarra just absolutely beggars belief. And I know David Littleproud, the national leader, was out today. Let's have a look at what he had to say about that.
I'll just say to those viewers that are from Tilseas, just take a little visit out west and understand the burden you're asking us to bear. For you to put your head on a pillow at night and think that you've saved the world, you've actually destroyed much of the environment where I live, and you're asking us to have our livelihoods taken away.
Well, he's talking about his electorate in his area, but this thing off the coast, you mean they're whacking it in the middle of a whale migration channel? I mean, I'm no greenie, but it seems to me to be too big, too quick, and it's just going to cause... how's Labor ever going to win a seat there when you're then going to have, you know, people who don't like renewable energy? You're going to have all the surfers in the community, all of the greenies. It's just going to create a headache and a nightmare for Labor, isn't it?
Well, I look at that and I sort of think they've lost Gilmore already. You know, it's one of the most marginal seats in Australia. Andrew Constance nearly won it last time. Peter Dutton's out there, you know, making hay today. Is this another Chris Bowen shocker from an electoral point of view? Last election, he was saying, if you don't like it, don't vote for it. Sorry, the election before that they lost, 2019. And now he's approved this thing right near a marginal seat. So it's the size of it. Look, I don't know. I mean, I've got an open mind of these offshore things, particularly if you can't see them, which is the claim, that you wouldn't really be able to see it and it's so far out. But it's the actual size which seems extraordinary. And that's a hard one to get through. And I'll tell you what else it does, Steve. It kind of makes the nuclear policy more palatable on Peter Dutton's side. If he's able to say, well, they're just going to cover the entire landscape, land and sea, with wind farms absolutely everywhere, this is an alternative, it makes something that people might be a bit more nervous about palatable. Now, I can tell you that it's my information that Peter Dutton will be releasing his nuclear policy in the next 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, before the midwinter break. And that will be a significant moment. And then the climate wars are on for young and old. And I think this has the potential to be an election where energy is more dominant, energy and climate is more dominant an issue than it's been in an Australian election before. And that's quite a statement when you think about, you know, the 2007 Kyoto Protocol, whether we sign it or not, election and subsequent elections, including the vote for the so-called teal candidates, based a lot on climate and also women's policy. But I think this is the biggest. This is the biggest climate energy battle yet that we're going to see at this election, Steve.
And we all remember, don't we, back when Tony Abbott beat Kevin Rudd Mark II, about things like bungled pink bats and school halls and all that. This, though, is that on steroids, Andrew.
Well, I guess it's the private sector that does it on this occasion, though, isn't it? But it's still, Peter Dutton is using that language. He's bringing up those examples. He's saying you can't trust Labor to engineer the poles and wires going out, the projects going up. Well, I guess Labor could say, well, how can we trust you to build a nuclear power plant, you know? Because Peter Dutton revealed on Sunday Agenda they're going to have to be government-owned or government-subsidised, it seems to me. So they both got arguments against each other. That's what makes it so fascinating. I actually think that a lot of Australians wouldn't be 100% comfortable with the policies on either side. Frankly, maybe if you got a policy in the middle of both sides, somewhere in between both sides, you'd be at a place where people are more comfortable. For example, Peter Dutton's talking about 6 or 7 nuclear power sites. The key question is, does he mean 1 or 2 reactors, or does he mean 6 or 7 reactors? And to leap to 6 or 7 reactors is a big leap for the Australian public. But equally, to build all these wind farms everywhere, and I've just read Tanya Plibersek approved another one in Queensland, and to have the renewables rollout that Anthony Albanese is talking about is also a big ask for Australians to get their heads around. So, this is where really you can imagine this playing every single day of an election campaign, and both sides working very hard to pick massive holes in every one of the proposed projects. So I think it makes for a really fascinating election campaign and a clear choice. And you don't often get clear choices in these elections. They align their policies pretty close with a couple of small differences. This is a massive choice.
Just finally, and I'm going to talk to Ross Greenwood shortly, Reserve Bank Governor interestingly said the board didn't talk about a rate cut, but did talk about a rate rise. Yeah. What's that do to the election timing?
Well, I mean, originally after the budget, when the government had a bit of a bounce and they were handing out this money in the budget, I thought they'd go this year because their inflation prediction says it'll come down this year, and that's not apparent at the moment. So to avoid that situation, you'd go in November, December this year. As the poll rankings of the government get worse, and as it appears clear to me that the Reserve Bank at the very least will hold rates where they are for a year and may even hike in August or September, October, I think they'll go later, the government, because they'll hope if we have to cop a hike or if we have to cop the Reserve Bank sticking with the current interest rate, we've got to wait until May and hope something changes. So that's where I think it is at. But those comments are significant. They are very significant. They mean the only way is up or just staying at this rate for a very long time. And very few Australians will be happy with that news, Steve.
Great analysis, Andrew Clennell. Thank you as usual, mate. Good on you.
Thanks, Steve.